Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching.
Hello all, my name is Chris. Oh, wait, that's not how we start. We start, welcome to the Kindred UMC live show, coming to you not live but pre-recorded from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden. I'm the pastor at Kindred UMC.
Hi, I'm Courtney Young. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Kindred UMC.
I'm Preston. Duval! Go Jags! And also, go Georgia Bulldogs. We're number one right
UGA.
now. UGA.
My mom graduated from UGA.
What?
Yeah. That's where she got her degree.
What?
Yeah. Before we get started, I need to remind everyone that we are having our annual church conference / charge conference. I think we're treating it as a church conference, even though it's only required to be a charge conference. Whatever, who cares? It's going to be at Asbury UMC, November 7th at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. All are welcome to come and participate. If you're a member of the church, you can vote, but it's all procedural stuff. We're not making like serious decisions, but anybody's welcome to come. If you're interested in that, you are welcome to come, and we're required to announce it. So here's the announcement. Okay, so this, even though we are pre-recording it, this will be released on All Hallows Eve. Does anyone know the origin of All Hallows Eve?
Martin Luther.
Okay. Can you expound upon that?
He had a good time at a bar.
On one October 31st, Martin Luther got real drunk at one of them breweries that them monks done made. And no, that's not, no. Incorrect.
Go Lutheran or go home. That's what I'm saying.
I know it has to do with All Saints Day and dead people.
All saints or no
Does
saints?
anybody know where the origin of hallowed?
Death. No soul and a body. That's
No,
what
it's holy. It's hallowed ground.
Oh.
It's holy ground. So All Hallows Eve is the eve of All Saints Day, all hallowed persons who have died. So All Saints Day is the liturgical event, the day in the year that Christians and typically more traditional like Catholic Lutheran kind of churches and denominations will celebrate what is called the great cloud of witnesses that have gone before. All those who have been faithful. That's a big cup.
Very
Yep.
rude. Do you shop at Racetrack or 7-Eleven?
Is there Kool-Aid in there?
You drinking 40 ounces of Kool-Aid?
It's water.
Okay.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
Smells like fruit punch. I'm gonna
It
say.
smells like a Hawaiian punch.
You
to
are
me.
drinking Kool-Aid.
No, so All Hallows Eve All Saints Day is when the church recognizes and remembers all those who have gone before and who have died and who have been faithful and it's a day of celebration and grief. And then All Hallows Eve is what happened is before we celebrate those who have died, there's this belief that maybe those who have died start to their spirits come back the night
They
before,
haven't completely passed,
and they do little tricks on us and haunt us, and that's where Halloween came from.
Granny, I know you're still there. You thing.
Shout out to my grandmama, Georgia Hayden, a finer lady never lived. But yeah, so this will come out kind of on a Halloween weekend and All Saints Day weekend, and so I want to talk about what do you think happens when you die?
Death.
Because it's going to happen to all of us. It has happened to plenty of people before us. And something about our theology is a little... well, first of all, before I read the text, what is your theological understanding, just as a starting place? Not necessarily what you think happens when you die, but what were you told, what were you taught? Because both of you have grown up in the church. What happens when you die according to what you've been told and taught?
You go first because I'm interested.
That's fine. You have to say a special prayer to accept Jesus into your heart. And when you say that special prayer to accept Jesus,
You got to do that while you're alive.
And
That's important.
It follows ABCs: A, accept; B, believe; C, confess. And if you say that special prayer, then you can go to heaven.
You had
And if
ABCs?
you don't say that special prayer, then you have to go to hell. And nobody wants to go to hell. That's what I was taught.
So what's heaven?
A place in the clouds where God lives and people sing and praise all day.
Okay, right. But also, really, what were you actually taught?
No, that's what I was taught.
You were taught it was literally in the clouds?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, it's in,
Man, that's
it's in
old
writing.
school literal.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll double down on this then. So when I was taught Diet Catholic or Lutheran, sorry, Mom and Dad, you're taught you live a good life. You try not to make it out of work to try to boost your own life, but others around you. And while that happens, you are then accepted as you are working towards, without telling others you.
pardon? I don't know if that
wasn't
came through the
me.
mics or not.
He's
but,
going to a different afterlife, which is what we can agree on with this.
My love,
Yes.
our bandmate is asking me questions that I can't answer right now. Would you please respond to him? Okay, say again.
Anyway, the case in point is
It stays in. I'm not editing it out.
Way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the form of a keyed whole that he has become.
He's
the
the
key.
way that you get through.
You are grabbing Jesus physically as the key to turn in the lock to get into whatever you believe the afterlife is. It doesn't have to be pearly gates. It doesn't have to be clouds above. It's the life.
golden streets.
It doesn't have to be that. That was what I was taught.
Yeah.
Not necessarily you can imagine it. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of it
Okay.
being God being an omniscient, knowing whatever. You are a part of that still. There's not
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's
I
not-
think I
yeah.
understand. I think, yeah. Okay, so I was kind of given a similar picture, not quite as literal as what you described, but the idea of
Yeah, get it.
if you are faithful to the person of Jesus, that specific form of God, then when you die, God takes you into some kind of a paradise. And if you don't believe in Jesus, then it... And actually, my church didn't talk about hell. They kind of avoided the subject most of the time.
Really?
Yeah, they weren't... They were... it was a more progressive church, but they also weren't so progressive that they actually addressed the problem of hell in Christian theology. But instead they just talked a lot about if you're good and faithful, then God will take care of you, and you don't have to worry about it.
Definitely got a 60-40 at least.
Yeah.
There's
I was
40%
gonna
of
say me too.
fire and brimstone. You ever seen Shrek type of thing?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't have that, and I think it may have something to do with why I became a pastor. I think had I had that experience, I would be.
Well, like the why are
a stockbroker. So I'd be something else.
You mean like the why aren't we talking about this? Or
No,
why
I
isn't
mean
it-
when you said 60, if the typical Christian theology around hell, which is if you do bad, then you go to a place of eternal punishment. If that was a substantial part of what was talked about, I think I would have. I don't believe that. It is inherently flawed theology to me. Even anybody who says it, I don't understand how you can say it without seeing and feeling the inherent contradictions in what you're saying. I have a hard time with it. And so if that had been part of the message that I was given, and that's, then I even at a young age, I would have been like, you guys are clearly full of
Right.
caca. Or other euphemisms for the S word. That would have been a real problem for me because it's thoroughly unthought out, it's unnuanced, it's unexamined. There's a problem with that.
For lack of a better term, beat into you to not.
They also get people when they're young.
Yeah.
But before you have all of your faculties of critical thinking. People who are very intelligent and can think critically, even... What is going on? All the beeps. As I was saying, people, even when they're young, people who are very intelligent, when they're young, they still don't have all their faculties at some point, and you can sneak things in there.
You can sneak an installation, like something that you.
And there's too much of that in the church and in Christianity. There's way too much of that. It's unexamined, and it's teaching people to not examine and not really do their own. Like, and one of my favorite go-to little Bible quotes is like, "Work out your own salvation." Everybody's responsible for working out your own salvation, and I think that's a version of. You need to have an understanding of what you believe and why. That's the expectation, and that's also why we believe so strongly in grace, is because that's necessarily going to end up in people thinking different things about things. If everybody's working out their own salvation, then you're going to end up with like 340 million different versions of salvation, and that's why there's grace. You don't have to have it right. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. We're talking about the afterlife, the theology of what happens when you die. So now we're going to go to an oft-overlooked book of the Bible because nobody wants to deal with it.
Titus.
And I certainly feel that way. I never want to deal with it, but we're going to deal with it tonight. We're going to be looking at the book of Revelations, chapter 21, verses 1 through 6. Now, before we get into this, it's important to realize the book of Revelations is a literary work, not a literal work.
And it's revelation of one person.
It is the revelation of John.
You were wrong.
Yeah, good job.
Oh,
That's true.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And the podcast.
And John probably wasn't actually John. He was probably
It's Jim.
referring to. Yeah, it was
He's
Jim.
another person.
We all know that it was Jim. No, it was a common thing to when you write a spiritual work that you would take a pen name of a former disciple, or a former apostle.
Is there a purpose for that? Is it a marketing type of?
I don't know, because it was 2,000 so years ago, and you can't really get in the head of somebody else. But we know that was a regular process, a regular kind of like practice, and that seems to make sense. Like if you want your gospel to spread, call yourself James, the brother of Jesus. Like, if you want your gospel to spread, write it in the name of Judas, even though Judas died 100 years earlier. There's something about that, like maybe the marketing, or I think everybody was in on it, though. I don't think anybody believed, it would be like somebody writing a Shakespearean play now.
Yeah.
And then saying, written by Shakespeare. That would be interesting, especially if they had the talent to pull it off. But nobody would actually believe that William Shakespeare wrote a new play. That wouldn't be the case. So I think there's something going on like that. It's more of like a hat nod. Like, hey. Okay, so here it is. 21 verses 1 through 6. And this is all very poetic, very abstract language. Goes like this. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. From the first heaven and the first earth. So already, a very different. That is a different picture of heaven and hell, or afterlife, or the thing, the apocalypse, or whatever language you want to put on this. That's a very different picture than what I was fed and what I was told. So then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away." And the one who was seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." Also he said, "Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." Then he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life." So, I was taught, and I think most people are taught, that you die one day, and there is a spiritual part of you that's not your body, and like that goes into a spiritual place that's heaven. And then you get to be in heaven, and you get ice cream, and I'm not allowed to say that word either, I imagine. Ice cream and pleasurable events for the rest of your life, and but it's also, even that's kind of weird, because the theology I was taught is you don't have a body anymore. You're a spirit, and because the body's bad, the flesh is bad, and that's the theology we get from Paul. Although I think it's a misinterpretation of Paul. That's not what Paul was talking about. But this idea that like the body's bad, the physical's bad, and the spiritual is true and good, and that's what happens when we die. You leave your body and you go somewhere else. The picture in Scripture and the idea in early Christian theology and even early Judaism is not, because actually that some of the poetry in that is a direct quote from Isaiah. The book of Isaiah, which is in the Old Testament, which is before Christ, so there's a direct link to like afterlife theology in this, like from an academic standpoint, the actual picture that we're given is that what happens is this slightly flawed expression of God's creation that ties all the way back to Genesis, where things went off. This flawed expression of creation will be made new. There will be a new heaven and a new earth, one in which God dwells among God's people. But there's still a very physical element to it. It's not like, the earth gets wiped away and we all go to heaven. It's like, no. Everything gets wiped away, and then the new thing is created that we are a part of. It's a new creation where God dwells with God's people perfectly, and then the poetic language of, and no more tears. God wiped away the tears of His people. No more thirst. No more pain. Like that's the. How literal we want to take that is up for debate. I don't,
for thousands of years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's this interesting new idea here that is counter, and it's not a new idea; it's an old idea. But there's an interesting, different perspective on what it means to have a Christian understanding of the afterlife. That's not what I was taught. I wasn't taught a heaven and a new earth where God dwells with people. I was taught we die and we float away somewhere. Now these are all metaphors, but I'm not sure where the "we die and we float away" came from, because it's not scriptural. So how does that sit with you? And this is always kind of a hard topic to talk about, particularly with young people. Young people tend not to concern themselves too much with the idea that we die one day.
I was going to say that was literally going to be my answer. I don't think about it unless it's very specifically brought up.
Well, what about, what's your theology of the people you care about who have died before you? So my grandmother, I have a rough relationship with my family, which I've talked about before. My grandmother on my mom's side took care of me in a lot of ways, but was also like a problem for me. She had some very abusive tendencies, and by the end of her life, I had to kind of like separate myself from a relation. I had to like set up very clear boundaries with her. And then at the end, and so that's rough, because and she's gone. There's no opportunity. There's no more opportunities for me to reconcile with her. On my father's side, my grandmother was a very important figure in my life, but she died when I was in my teens. I was like 17, 18 when she died, and I have a significant amount of grief over. She never got to see me become I never got to feel her see me who I became and be proud of me. You know, I was still kind of figuring my stuff out. Like I was still figuring myself out when she died. But she was also very important and very loving and very like an important figure in my life. And I dream about her a lot. Like she shows up in my dreams a lot, and I'm not sure exactly why, other than I just, you know, I have that kind of like longing. I'm not sure what I believe about like, you know, this great cloud of witnesses. Is she proud of me? Is she somewhere witnessing what I'm doing? Or is she elsewhere where I'm going to meet her one day? Or is it all kind of like ethereal, like when you die, you're dead, you know, and that's the way it is. So that's kind of what I'm getting at when I'm asking you, like, what do you think about that stuff?
I think ethereal's the right word. It's supposed to be a headspace. You're if I'm to speak for a lot of people, you're supposed to be thinking on thinking. Why am I thinking like this? Versus what am I thinking about? Who am I thinking about? Where am I thinking about? There's other like pejoratives to use. Why? There's a big why question, which is the whole reason people get into religion.
Like what you mean? Like the question of why do I exist? Why do I have?
Why do I exist? And then why do I think I care so much about when I don't exist?
I'll tell you what. The older I've gotten, the more that has become a thing in me.
Yeah.
Where I've been like, I'm gonna stop existing one day.
Yeah. I heard a really good quote today from a sermon from San Lando. Look out for that. And generalizing, he was saying, in relationships, thinking selfishly, not necessarily negatively. If you aren't taking something from the person you're talking to or relating to, you take away a selfish perspective and a selfish emotional perspective. You take away, how am I thinking about myself? How does this person think about myself? And what am I feeling about this person thinking about me and me thinking about me with this person? So if you don't take away...
There's too many pronouns in there.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
You lost me.
If it's a one-on-one and we're thinking about why do I exist? If I'm too in my head and I'm not thinking about what this person's thinking, I'm just hearing instead of listening, what am I taking away from this? And am I too anxious about my own life and I'm thinking only about myself? How can I prosper from their conversation to me versus...
Okay, so there's something about the anxiety of existence.
Yes.
Because the question of existence, if you really focus on it, can and will produce anxiety.
Yeah, and this sounds very dumb, but I think the X in anxiety and the X in existence are related.
Okay.
It's an easy cop-out to relate those, but I think they're very, very related.
Yeah.
One cross of the X is your existence. Why am I here? And if it's not for a purpose, why do I force myself?
Is it
onto a
random
purpose?
or did something do this on purpose?
And the other X to cross through that cross-section is, now I'm anxious about, am I supposed to be doing something? So death is the cattle call, like the gate telling you. And really not, because you don't know after. You're dead. You have no thought after.
Well, but that's also the theology.
Right.
Like, so there are some people who believe that exactly what you just said. It's done. And then there are lots of other people, and I think probably the majority of humanity thinks something goes on after that. But with pretty much no evidence.
And is it selfish
or
spiritual?
You know, like the only reason we think that is because of like certain, like teachers, and I think there is something about people who get really enlightened seem to have a strong connection with something that is beyond us, and I find myself that's where I end up putting my faith. I place my faith in the moments that I have had where I really genuinely feel a connection beyond me. Mm-hmm. And I place my faith in, I'm a Christian, so specifically the person of Jesus, but also there's plenty of other gurus and teachers and spiritual leaders who have said similar things and accomplished similar things. But I place my faith in the person of Jesus, who seems to insist that there's something deeper and more meaningful going on. Like his very nature and existence insists that there's something else happening.
Yeah, I was going to say, to answer your question, I like your heaven is here, it's here for the taking kind of theology. Like, there's something more meaningful beyond.
We were out with some friends, and I met a friend of a friend for the first time. And, you know, it always happens when you're a pastor. Like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a pastor. Like, oh, let's talk about everything that I hate about the church, or every problem I've ever had with Christian theology. Like, it always happens, and it's fun. Like, I don't mind it at all. I enjoy it. Good. But I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were like, so what about this heaven thing? Like, so if you're good, you die and you go to heaven. And like, no. The actual Christian theology of heaven is it's here. It is here and now.
Yeah, but
I was talking to this person about what could be better. We're out with people we love. There's good music. We're dancing. We're drinking. Everybody's having a good time. We're safe and safer than any humans have been in the history of humanity. You know, like we're well fed. This is heaven. We have everything that we need and everything we could ever want right here for the taking right now. All we have to do is just direct our attention to it. You know, like it's right here. Anyway, sorry, I think it needs more elaboration. Like it's a concept that we miss out on all the time.
Right.
Also, it ties into our next thing that we're going to be talking about, which is gratitude. And I feel like we should probably stop now and leave it hanging and maybe continue this conversation about gratitude later because we are out of time.
Okay, then I have some.
All right. Okay. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.